The seventh day after the tower was completed, my sister Sue stood on the top of a tall building and said the last words to me. After saying this, she jumped down from the tall building. Bright red blood spurted out, staining the hem of her husband's clothes. The man who just a moment ago had scolded her for being hypocritical and vicious now knelt on the ground in agony, tears streaming down his face. Not far away, the instigator was sobbing softly, and the people around her were comforting her gently. That is my husband whom I have been married to for 5 years.
1.
Sue was the queen mother of the current dynasty, the legitimate daughter of the Grand Tutor, and the daughter of heaven. She jumped down from the city wall, and many people in the capital saw it with their own eyes. Thousands of rumors about why Sue wanted to commit suicide spread throughout the streets and alleys. As the younger sister, I was also one of the audience. After returning to the general's mansion, I stayed indoors and drove away all visitors. Others thought that after witnessing that scene, I must have suffered a severe blow to my heart and would be unable to recover for a while. I really can't slow down. I sat at the desk, holding my trembling right hand with my left hand, and tried my best to write the secret letter calmly. Sue's last words echoed in my ears. Conghe, don't avenge me. Leave the capital and go far away. The men of the Li family are not worthy of our love. I'm going to be free. You can fly freely too. Her eyes, which had been dim for half a year, now shone brightly, and her dead soul came back to life. But the next moment, she opened her arms and jumped down without hesitation. She is free. She was freed as she wished. In the last moment of her life, she let go, but I couldn't. I handed the secret letter to the person in the dark and issued several instructions. These instructions should have been executed a month ago, but were delayed until today. Sister, you said you wouldn't let me take revenge, but you didn't say you wouldn't let me take back everything you gave to the Li family. Sue and I are half-sisters. I was born out of wedlock, and she was born out of wedlock. However, her biological mother died early, and her situation in the mansion was not good. But she still took good care of me. I left the capital to study martial arts, and was accepted as an apprentice by a master, and changed my name to Conghe. Originally, we should have cut off past family ties, but the master said that everything has its cause and effect, and our karma has not yet been severed. My destiny is Sue. When we were young, she changed each other's fate in order to save me. I want to repay Sue's kindness. So I returned to the capital. I planned to meet her and become sworn sisters with her. She recognized me and knew that I didn't want to go back to the past, so she concealed my identity. Her heart's desire was to marry the third prince, Li. I helped her get what she wanted. However, some unexpected events occurred during the process, and I was forced to marry the fifth prince, Li Conghe. The royal family is fighting for power, and no prince can stay out of it, especially Li, who is related to the Grand Tutor by marriage. I couldn't bear to see Sue feel lost, so I used the fifth prince's influence to help her husband ascend to a high position. When Li ascended the throne, he immediately appointed Sue as the empress. Li Conghe, who had made great contributions in following the dragon, became the one who was second only to the emperor and above all others. It has something to do with me and Li Conghe. It also has something to do with the Taifu mansion. It's also because of the mutual support between Li and Sue. Li solemnly promised Sue in front of all the officials. He promised that he would only have Sue as his wife in this life, and that the harem would remain empty, and he would not take any concubines. He went against all odds and demoted or even killed those who disagreed, until no one dared to say anything. I witnessed the scene with my own eyes. A year later, I also witnessed Li's inconsistency.
2.
Li Conghe won another victory. But when he came back from the border, he brought a woman with him, a white moonlight who grew up with the two brothers. This person is also the concubine's daughter of the Taifu mansion, and also the younger sister of Sue and me. My father, the Grand Tutor, was a wonderful man. He was a playboy all his life and had a lot of concubines and maids in his house. Naturally, there are a lot of children too, but they are all daughters. The phrase he hated to hear the most was, "You are destined to have no children." But after a lifetime of hardship and countless daughters, he ultimately ended up childless, leaving behind regrets. However, due to the marriages formed by these daughters, his position in the court was stable and his status was noble. Even though he was just a grand tutor with a title but no power, he could still be very important. Because of the various connections, the Li brothers racked their brains and finally accepted the Taifu as their teacher. Naturally, he had close contacts with the Taifu mansion. Because Su Yi was the daughter of destiny, she had been close to many royal descendants and nobles since she was a child. Among them are the Li brothers. They grew up together like childhood sweethearts. At some point, Su Qingqing walked into the group of 3 people, was appreciated by the 2 brothers, and became a special person in their hearts. During the time I was away from Beijing, I didn't know the stories of Su Yi and Su Qingqing, Li Yan, and Li Conghe. But after Su Qingqing returned to Beijing, I witnessed her entanglement with the Li brothers. This woman who moved into the general's mansion not only received the devoted care of my husband, but also the full protection of the current emperor. It was from Su Qingqing that I realized for the first time that Li Conghe could also laugh, gently coax a woman to eat and sleep, and select fabrics to make clothes. After Su Qingqing returned to the capital, the first person she provoked was me. She didn't recognize that I was also the daughter of the Grand Tutor. Yes, there are 18 illegitimate daughters in the Taifu mansion, and they are all concerned with their own survival. Who has the spare time to look at others? Su Qingqing called Li Conghe away from me several times, using the excuse of being weak and frightened. And Li Conghe never tires of cooperating with her little tricks. He advised me to be magnanimous and not to care about it, saying that she was just his beloved teacher's sister. Of course I don't care. I'm not interested in him. If he had not been of use to me, I would not have chosen him as my husband. But Li Conghe alone was not enough to satisfy Su Qingqing. At the palace banquet on Su Yi's birthday, Su Qingqing shyly called her sister and cried in grievance. "I know that a woman like me shouldn't have entered the palace and polluted the eyes of the public. I know that I am not worthy of standing with you. But, sister, I miss you so much. I have endured the bitter cold at the border for 3 years, but I can't stand it any longer. I don't have much time left to live, and all I want for the rest of my life is to come back and see my former relatives." She cried and complained, with a humble posture and weak makeup, and looked hesitantly at Li Yan, who is sitting on the dragon chair. The emperor of this dynasty is the one she wants to cling to. Su Yi's close friend, now the wife of the Minister of Personnel, is truly outspoken. If you knew you couldn't get on the stage, you shouldn't have taken a step into the palace. You married far away for wealth and glory, but now your dreams of power and wealth are shattered, and you have the nerve to come back. You are so shameless. This remark caused a murmur of discussion. The women in Beijing knew a lot of inside information about what happened back then. From these few brief words, we learned that a small border country had won a war and came to propose marriage. He was originally going to marry a princess, but for some reason he fell in love with Su Qingqing at first sight, and Su Qingqing became the one to be married off. She married in a high-profile manner. But I guessed from Li Conghe's words that Su Qingqing was set up to replace the marriage. Su Qingqing's marriage resolved the crisis, but also made the Li brothers feel guilty. She became the long-cherished white moonlight in the hearts of the Li brothers. I don't care how Su Qingqing makes a fuss in the mansion, but I cannot tolerate the fact that she embarrassed Su Yi today. I looked at Su Yi. She was holding her handkerchief nervously and looking at Li Yan again and again. Li Yan and Li Conghe's eyes fell on Su Qingqing. Su Qingqing gritted her teeth, stretched out her arms, rolled up her sleeves, and revealed the bright red chastity sand. Although the method was not presentable, the Li brothers enjoyed it very much. Su Qingqing burst into tears and said every word. "Brother Conghe, Qingqing is not. Qingqing didn't." Su Qingqing, with tears streaming down her face, shook her head and bit her lower lip. She seemed unable to bear the humiliation and fell down with her hands covering her chest with a pale face. Li Yan could no longer sit still, So he got down from the dragon chair and eagerly carried Su Qingqing to find the imperial physician. The palace banquet ended before it even started. Li Conghe, a usually cold, aloof and taciturn general, lost his mind in front of everyone for the first time. He walked up to the wife of the Minister of Personnel and was the first friend to speak up and question Su Yi, speaking up for him. A hard slap in the face. The general's force was so strong that he knocked the man unconscious to the ground. He didn't care what others thought, whether they were men or women. He only scolded Su Qingqing in public. I watched him go crazy and angry with cold eyes. I know he is venting, he is hating. Because he was a subject, he could only watch Li Yan take the person away. 3. Su Yi's funeral was held in a grand manner. Although she had completely lost her favor during her lifetime, she was still the queen. Nowadays, funeral arrangements are also carried out according to the standards of the mother of the nation. But she won't be happy. On the day the coffin was buried, I finally opened the door. The first person I saw was Li Conghe. Conghe, I am also very sad about the matter of the emperor's sister-in-law. Qingqing is also sad, but this is all a misunderstanding. He didn't care about how I had been doing these days, he just wanted to defend Su Qingqing. I looked at him with a stiff smile. Are you afraid of what I will do to her? What can I do to her? He wanted to explain, but I waved my hands away and didn't want to listen. He entered the palace alone. Li Conghe looked much more haggard. He stood guard over Su Yi's coffin with red and swollen eyes. When he saw me, he staggered over, grabbed my hand, and asked in a hoarse voice, "What did Iris tell you before she died? Do you still care?" I asked Li Yan with a sneer. Li Yan pretended to be sad. I didn't want her to die, I never thought. I didn't expect her to. Really? I sneered. You don't deserve to look so sad when you are defending Su Qingqing in front of everyone. Li Yan cried and said that he was just easy on Su Qingqing when he was young, and it was Su Yi who made trouble for no reason again and again. My heart is at peace. Until now, Li Yan still thinks he is right. Still protecting Su Qingqing. It is the bad nature of men to always look at what is in the pot while eating from the bowl. They are never content. Su Qingqing revealed her uterus protecting sand at the palace banquet that day, proving her innocence on the spot. From that day on, she lived in the palace. She was not a concubine, but she was better than one. The several times they met in the palace, she was treated even better than the queen. Li Yan was moved by Su Qingqing and neglected his first wife. He also forgot that Su Yi had given him no less than Su Qingqing. Your Majesty, do you really not know? Or, do you not want to know what Su Qingqing did? Even if you don't want to know the truth, Your Majesty, you should remember what your sister did for you, right? For Li Yan, Su Yi humbled herself and gathered forces, risking her life to pave the way for him. On the day of the abdication, she stayed in the palace as a hostage, which gave Li Yan the opportunity. But within a year, Li Yan had forgotten all of this. I really don't want this to happen. I never thought about being a loser. Looking at the man in front of me, I cried bitterly and felt regretful. I reminded him, yes, you didn't want her to die, you just wanted her to give up the position of queen. You just wanted to help Su Qingqing ascend to the position of queen. At first, Su Yi accepted Su Qingqing's existence with guilt, wanting to compensate his sister. But this sister only cared about Su Yi's position as queen. Su Qingqing used the same trick she had used to seduce Li Conghe to deal with Su Yi. I warned Su Yi to be on guard against Su Qingqing, but Su Yi was not stupid. After seeing Su Qingqing's true face, she drew a clear line between them. However, in the duel between the two, Su Yi was defeated. She said to me, "Conghe, I can't win. The man's heart has been biased. No matter what I do, I will lose. I don't understand love, nor do I understand what Su Yi said. But Su Yi's death that day made me understand that there is no greater sorrow than death." Li Yan was upset about Su Yi's death and was unwilling to punish Su Qingqing, the culprit. 4. In the past, Su Yi once asked Li Yan a question. If Li Yan had to choose only one person between Su Yi and Su Qingqing, who would he choose? Now, in front of Su Yi's coffin, I repeated this question. Li Yan covered his face and cried, "Why do you always force me? I am the emperor. Can I have both?" The person who said that they would be together forever was Li Yan, and the person who wants to be hugged left and right is still Li Yan. You chose Su Qingqing to be your harem back then. Do you still want to protect her now? Li Yan shook his head. It's not that I want to protect her, but destiny wants her to be by my side. We have all been deceived. Su Qingqing is the real girl of destiny. Su Yi has never been one. I frowned and looked at him in confusion. Li Conghe came in at this time and handed me some papers. Take a look for yourself. I took it and read it quickly. The so-called girl of destiny was a comment made by the former national teacher. 15 years ago, the imperial teacher calculated that the Su family had a daughter destined to be a phoenix. If she could marry into the royal family, she could help the dynasty prosper for 100 years. There are many daughters in the Su family and outsiders don't know who it is, so the imperial teacher left his horoscope to the Taifu. I know all this. Later, Su Yi's name became known, and everyone believed that Su Yi was the girl of destiny. So, even the Li brothers surrounded her. Many princes wanted to marry Su Yi. However, due to her special status, the Grand Tutor always rejected those who came to propose marriage on the grounds that she was young. Later, Su Yi liked to go to Li Yan. The paper in my hand records that the horoscope was actually Su Qingqing's. It was Su Yi's mother who took control of Lord Su and forced him to change. It is also because of her identity as the daughter of destiny that Su Yi was able to successfully lobby various forces. After the palace coup, Li Yankai became the new emperor without bloodshed. He was still defending himself. Iris and I have been through thick and thin together and have experienced life and death together to reach my current position. If it weren't for the last resort, I would not want her to give up the position of queen. Su Qingqing represents the stability of the country. As an emperor, between his first wife and the country, he can only choose the country. If the people knew that Su Yi was a fake goddess, how could I secure my throne? His reason sounded plausible, so he used it to convince himself and gave up Su Yi. I sneered. In the past, the imperial teacher also said that Li Conghe had the fate of an emperor, but now it is not him who sits on the dragon throne. If you follow what the imperial master said, for the sake of the country, you should give up your throne, let Li Conghe ascend the throne, and marry the goddess Su Qingqing, right? Li Yan was speechless. I saw the ambition in Li Conghe's eyes. Once upon a time, the brothers might have trusted each other. But the days that Su Qingqing stayed in the mansion completely captured Li Conghe's heart. Thinking carefully, what the imperial master said is correct. Li Conghe fought in the north and south and was undefeated. He enjoyed great prestige in the army and among the people. If my elder brother had not been given priority, the throne should really have belonged to Li Conghe. These two brothers are one literary and one martial. In the past, one person stayed in the capital to stabilize the situation and win the support of ministers. One person made great achievements outside, gained control of the military, and made outstanding military exploits in expanding territory. The two of them later joined forces to force the emperor to abdicate, leading to today's situation. Li Yan looked at Li Conghe. The two of them were fully aware of the imperial master's comments.
5.
Li Conghe's military power was taken back. Li Yan began to be wary of Li Conghe. Li Conghe asked me, "What did you say to my brother after I left that day?" That day, I showed Li Yan some of the research data. Let him see clearly what Su Qingqing did in the palace and how she framed Su Yi. And the truth that Su Yi has been hiding all these years. Su Yi has given so much to Li Yan. Even though she is not the girl of destiny, she has made great contributions. Brother Yan, it's my fault. Please don't make things difficult for Sister Xing. Su Qingqing was driven out of the palace by Li Yan, and Li Conghe happily took her back to his house. Li Conghe knew that this was a test from Li Yan, but he still brought the person back. Su Qingqing hid behind Li Conghe, smiling arrogantly. I gave Li Conghe the same information I gave Li Yan. Li Conghe took a quick glance at it, then tore it into pieces and threw it away. She has suffered a lot since she was young. It's nothing that she is a little arrogant now. It's because my brother doesn't trust my sister-in-law enough. It's not Qingqing's fault. I couldn't help it and slapped Li Conghe hard in the face. He was beaten so hard that blood oozed from the corners of his mouth. Su Qingqing took a handkerchief and wiped Li Conghe's wound distressfully. Yisheng, are you crazy? I stood on the stone steps, looking down at Li Conghe. Don't forget, Su Yi saved your life. The two brothers were suppressed by the late emperor and assassinated by his favorite concubine. Li Conghe was injured, but did not dare to seek medical advice. The doctors in the capital city did not dare to come to treat the patient. Su Yi went to every pharmacy to ask for medicine, and even went to the suburbs to collect the missing herbs himself, with wounds all over his body. After many twists and turns and great efforts, Li Conghe's life was saved. Later, he used his connections to send Li Conghe out of the capital and let him join the army, which led to his future fortune. Now that my former benefactor is dead, he said these excuses in a cold voice. I didn't kill him because the time was not right. 6. Two comments by the imperial teacher were circulated in the capital. Some scholars accused the current emperor of being unworthy of his position. Li Conghe's reputation grew, and even the officials in the court began to take sides. I know that what I said that day worked. Li Yan knew that his brother was alienated, so he went to Li Conghe to have a frank talk. Li Conghe was held captive by Su Qingqing and refused to enter the palace, so he secretly made plans. If you can force abdication once, you can do it a second time. Practice makes perfect. How can you not succeed? No matter who became the emperor, he was of the Li family's bloodline, and the court officials turned a blind eye and let it go. On this day, changes in the palace happened quickly. It didn't even affect the morning court session that day. When Li Conghe appeared in the court wearing a yellow robe, some people smiled knowingly, while others sighed. No one questioned it. The new emperor succeeded to the throne smoothly. I found Li Yan in the abandoned palace. Do you regret it? He is blind. Blinded by Su Qingqing herself. Su Yi's death made Li Yan sober up. The man was unwilling to admit that he was one of the murderers and blamed all the guilt on Su Qingqing. On the night Su Qingqing was driven out of the palace, Li Yan wanted to blind Su Qingqing, but unfortunately Su Qingqing was rescued by Li Conghe. After Li Conghe succeeded in forcing her to abdicate, Su Qingqing, who was filled with hatred, retaliated by blinding Li Yan's eyes. Li Conghe acquiesced. If you had chosen Su Yi that day, you would still be a high and mighty emperor, have a wise queen, and have a smart son in the future. Do you regret it? The palace maids neglected him, and Li Yan lost a lot of weight, and his clothes became dirty and torn. Even the most destitute prince would not live such a miserable life. No one was there to treat his eyes, which were red and swollen, with red blood flowing out from time to time. Even if I regret it, what can I do? I just hope that I can give me another chance after I go to the underworld. Now that things have come to this, Yisheng, can you tell me what Yi said in the end? I shook my head, and thinking that he couldn't see it, I spoke. She hopes to have nothing to do with you forever. Everything that is now here is brought to you by Su Yi. I will take back everything that she has given you. When I was about to leave, Li Yan stopped me. Yisheng, please leave the capital. I don't want you to be the next Su Yi. How could I be the next Su Yi? 7. Li Conghe did not make me his queen. Between me and Su Qingqing, his choice was Su Qingqing. Choosing Su Qingqing means misfortune, and Li Yan's ending did not teach him a lesson. In the harem, there are only two masters living there, Su Qingqing and I. No, the real master is only Su Qingqing. When I met her in the back garden, she was surrounded by a dozen palace maids. There was only one palace maid by my side, and this maid was sent by Li Conghe to monitor me, for fear that I would hurt his sweetheart. You are just an orphan who has taken care of the emperor for a few years at the border. Do you think you can become the queen? Li Conghe's wholehearted favoritism gave Su Qingqing unlimited confidence. When she saw me in the palace, she arrogantly provoked me. She pointed to the lake nearby. If you push me down, will the emperor let you go out of our relationship? It is cold in June now, and the lake water is icy. If you stay in the water for a while, you will definitely not be able to bear it. Su Qingqing smiled at me triumphantly, and I saw the palace maid behind her running out and heading towards the emperor's study. I understand. Su Yi had been framed in this way before, and she had no way to defend herself. Everyone in the palace said that it was the queen who pushed someone. Li Yan slapped Su Yi in public, destroying not only the dignity of the queen, but also the 2-month-old baby in her belly. All the imperial physicians were called away by Su Qingqing, leaving Su Yi with no one to take care of her. That night, I accompanied her in mourning the loss of her child. Su Qingqing chuckled. Li Conghe doesn't have much affection for you. She deliberately reminded me of the past. As I watched, she jumped into the lake without hesitation. The palace servants were in chaos. Some were shouting, some were trying to save people. It was very lively. I took the opportunity to grab a handful of stones from the ground, and when someone was about to bring Su Qingqing ashore, I threw a stone over. Su Qingqing has been splashing in the water. It was not until Li Conghe appeared that I clapped my hands and put down the hidden weapon. When Su Qingqing came ashore, she was shivering from the cold and couldn't speak. His face was pale, and there was no trace of blood on his lips. He must have suffered a lot. She raised her hand tremblingly and pointed at me, her lips trembling, and she exhaled white air in an inaudible sound. The palace maid next to me spoke quickly, accusing me of being jealous of Su Qingqing in the palace and wanting to kick her out. After a dispute, she pushed me into the lake with the intention of killing Su Qingqing. Su Qingqing trembled in Li Conghe's arms, tugging at Li Conghe's clothes and nodding in agreement from time to time as the palace maid spoke. Her eyes were full of grievance, which made Li Conghe, a tough guy, become gentle and affectionate. Yisheng, what do you have to say? When he spoke to Su Qingqing, his tone was so gentle that he was afraid of scaring the beauty. When he faced me, he was like Yan Luo, wishing he could take my life immediately. I took a step forward and kicked Li Conghe. He had to let go of Su Qingqing and dodge my attack. But my target was not him at all. I turned around and kicked the shocked Su Qingqing on the ground into the lake. Before Su Qingqing fell into the water, she vomited blood. I kicked her in the gut. Li Conghe's eyes were red with anger, and he raised his hands to fight with me. I grabbed his throat 3 or 5 times. Now you saw it with your own eyes. I kicked the man into the lake. Even if you convict me, I will admit it. I loosened my hand, wiped it with my handkerchief in disgust, and then threw it into the lake. Time has passed, and you don't remember some of the past. I'll help you recall it. Was it a hero saving a beautiful girl, or something else? Think about it carefully. Li Conghe, if I want someone to die, there are thousands of ways to do it. Tell Su Qingqing later not to provoke me again, otherwise, humph. After this day, no one came to question him. All the palace servants present at the imperial garden were silenced about this scene. How can I become the next Su Yi?
8.
Li Conghe announced that Su Qingqing would be made queen. Only a very small number of court officials cheered and agreed. More people chose silence. There was no clear opposition, nor clear agreement, as if this matter had nothing to do with them. Li Conghe publicly acknowledged Su Qingqing's identity as the true daughter of destiny, but still did not get the support he had imagined. When he announced that I was given the position of beauty, some of the ministers who had their heads bowed raised their heads and looked at me with an unclear meaning. The imperial edict of canonization was delivered to my palace, and the palace servants announced it arrogantly and looked at me with disdain. For an orphan girl to be so rich is the greatest blessing in your life. The palace maids in the harem were successfully captured by Su Qingqing. The ceremony of enthroning the queen will be held in 10 days. Su Qingqing looked sick and walked around in front of me, showing off the jewelry and bright red clothes that Li Conghe had given her as a reward. He didn't dare to provoke me and just walked away without causing me any harm. But she couldn't hide her fear of me in her eyes. Her internal injuries have not healed to this day.
9.
The day before the ceremony of enthroning the empress, I took the initiative to look for Li Conghe for the first time. In the queen's bedroom, they were seen cuddling together. Less than 3 months have passed since Su Yi passed away, and the furnishings here have changed drastically, with no trace of the past left. Su Qingqing smiled proudly. I spent a lot of time and effort to change the layout, and the emperor likes it very much. Yi, what do you think? Su Qingqing, do you think your position as queen is secure, so you can't help but start provoking me? I lowered my eyes and looked at the two people sitting motionless. Su Qingqing deliberately held Li Conghe's hands to show their intimacy. She looked at me nonchalantly, and with the courage given by Li Conghe, she held her head high and said, "You will see me being conferred the title tomorrow at the ceremony. Remember to come to the palace every day to greet me from now on. I will indeed see you crowned." I sat down aside with a smile. He took out a token, the token of the Imperial Master's Mansion. After the death of the previous national teacher, the new national teacher has been slow to take office. But the token unique to the Imperial Master's Mansion can only be possessed by the heir. Although the Imperial Master does not interfere in court affairs, the rise and fall of the dynasty is related to the Imperial Master. Rumor has it that the national teacher has extraordinary skills, and his divination technique is very accurate. He can predict good and bad fortune, avoid disasters, and pray for rain and blessings. But after the Imperial Preceptor passed away 6 years ago, the Imperial Preceptor's mansion closed its doors to visitors. The successor was a disciple of the previous Imperial teacher, but no one had ever seen him, and he had never appeared in the court. In his later years, the late emperor asked for help from the Imperial Master's office, but never received a response. Although Li Conghe's throne was not obtained in a legitimate way, he knew some inside information when he was fighting for the throne with Li Yan. At the ceremony of the new emperor and empress, the Imperial Preceptor would present gifts, witness the ceremony in person, and give his blessing. However, during the coronation ceremony of the Li brothers, the Imperial Preceptor's mansion remained closed. It's not that no one has tried to force their way in, but no matter how capable they are, they will be kicked out. The lofty status of the Imperial Preceptor's office was established by itself. Li Conghe recognized the token and looked at me seriously. "How come you have the Imperial Master's token?" I played with this token that had been passed down for 300 years and laughed wantonly. Let me introduce myself again. My real name is Su Sheng, and I am the current owner of the Imperial Master's Mansion.
10.
Su Sheng, Su of Su Yi, also Su of Su Qingqing. To be honest, you should call me sister, because I was born 3 days before you. I thought I looked kind, but Su Qingqing looked at me in horror and shook her head repeatedly. Impossible, impossible. Li Conghe also showed an expression of disbelief, but calmer than Su Qingqing. He was quick to sense that something was amiss, and his clenched fists betrayed his inner uneasiness. A few years ago, the imperial teacher passed by Su's house and deduced the 8 trigrams and found out that my horoscope was related to the prosperity of the dynasty. The 8 characters left at the beginning were indeed mine, but my mother didn't want me to be involved in these complicated matters, so she changed it. The imperial teacher knew about it and acquiesced. Later, my mother passed away due to illness, and I had a hard time at home. It was only after Su took good care of me that my life became a little better. Su Qingqing, you also bullied me. She is also a lowly lady in the mansion. Her biological mother is of low status, but she likes to bully others to show her uniqueness. Before her death, my mother entrusted me to the Imperial Master. After I left the mansion, I followed the Imperial Master to study and became his disciple. Compared to the pieces of paper forged by Su Qingqing, the evidence I produced is much more complete. Su Qingqing knew very well that her identity was fake, but she didn't want this identity to fall on me. I rushed over and knew at a glance that she could no longer hide it. Tear it up first. I took out another one without much concern. Tear it slowly. I have many copies. I gave one to each of the court officials and scattered 1,000 copies on the busy streets of the capital. I guarantee that everyone in the capital will know the news tomorrow. No one can take away my destiny. Su Qingqing, I despise your position as queen. Don't be like a thief. I won't fight with you for it. After all, the Imperial Master's mansion is much more comfortable than this. Li Conghe, the reason I came to you today is to clarify my identity. As for the position of beauty, I am not qualified. Please find another beauty. He stood up, waved his sleeves, and left. Return to my imperial master's mansion. 11. When Su Yi first married Li Yan, no one cared about her existence, and no one cared about Prince Li Yan. The competition for the crown prince was fierce, and no one expected that Li Yan would be the winner in the end. He had no powerful maternal family to support him, no officials in the court looked up to him, and no money to attract talented people. But what makes him surpass everyone else is Su Yi's passionate love. I attributed the identity of the girl of destiny to Su Yi. By that time, Su Qingqing had already left the capital, and Su's father acquiesced to this result, and the late emperor believed it. The stakes for Li Yan were raised, and he officially took to the table to compete for the throne. I disdain the reputation of being the daughter of destiny, and I don't want to get involved with the Li family. After the death of the imperial master, no one cares about me. The imperial master's mansion obeys me. Whatever the truth is, I can write it at will. But I didn't expect that Su Qingqing would later make a fuss about the real and fake daughter of destiny. Su Yi was hit hard on every side and felt completely disheartened. She never told me about these things afterwards. She only wanted to be free from the suffering of the royal family. Su Qingqing planned so hard to become the queen, but in the end she missed it. Although Li Conghe loved Su Qingqing, he loved the power he had obtained even more. As a general, Li Conghe could sacrifice everything for Su Qingqing and did not care about the opinions of the people in the world. But after becoming emperor and enjoying the benefits of power, he was reluctant to give up the throne. Just like Li Yan was reluctant to let go. Women are options they can give up. It's a beautiful name for the sake of the country. Li Conghe came to the imperial master's mansion and knocked on the door. It took 3 consecutive days before I allowed anyone to invite him in. I was lying in the long corridor under the eaves, rocking in a rocking chair, with a servant waiting beside me with hot tea. Li Conghe walked into the courtyard and saw me closing my eyes to rest. For a moment, he didn't know how to address me. I used to be his appendage, the general's wife, but now I am a prestigious imperial teacher. Holds the fate of the dynasty in his hands. He may not respect me, but he has to be afraid of my abilities. After standing there in silence for half an hour, I finally softened and let him go. Come in and sit down. 12. When Su Yi rescued Li Conghe, he asked me for help. I gave her an idea to knock on the doors of every pharmacy. Only sincere efforts can impress the Li brothers. At that time, they were truly grateful for Su Yi's contribution, but later they discarded it like a piece of trash and didn't mention it anymore. When Li Conghe left the capital, I escorted him all the way. I also know the fortune-telling that the national teacher once did. I can indeed see that Li Conghe has the aura of an emperor. I was curious about this person who was supposed to have a destiny tied to mine. I was young and frivolous, and thought I could control myself. As long as I didn't fall in love, there would be no entanglement. At the border, he watched him being bullied by veteran generals, endured the humiliation and honed his skills, and then went to the battlefield to make contributions regardless of his life. At that time, he was a beautiful person in my eyes. I didn't want to interfere with his fate at first, but later I couldn't help but take action. He was chasing the enemy, but was surrounded and barely escaped death. It was I who saved him. He treated his wounds in the cave and killed the enemy leader. In his spare time, he taught him how to lead troops in battle, which made him famous for his invincibility. He is very concerned about his reputation, so I let him boast about his own achievements and erase my existence. As he explained to others, their initial encounter was a beautiful and romantic story of a hero saving a beautiful girl. He saw my body and had to marry me. He is a responsible man. I accompanied him as he grew up in the border area, watched him achieve great things and return to the capital, and watched the 2 brothers force the palace to seize the throne. Later she married him and became the general's wife. I concealed my own achievements and abilities, and played the role of an orphan with no special abilities. Li Conghe pretended to be blind and watched it happen happily. In fact, from the time we got married until now, he and I have not really been husband and wife. At first, he was embarrassed. He knew that it was not a gentleman's behavior to erase my achievements. He felt guilty and could see that I had no love for him. He promised that when the dust settled, he would love me well and let me enjoy the supreme honor of being a general's wife. Later, after telling so many lies, he no longer felt that he owed me anything and even thought that it was all his own ability. He warned me not to hurt Su Qingqing as a matter of course, but forgot my capabilities. I want to hurt someone without giving her a chance to fight back. When Su Qingqing suffered repeated internal injuries and couldn't sleep at night due to the pain, did she feel regretful? Li Conghe felt distressed at first, but as he was woken up more often later, he no longer felt the initial sympathy. Even if I didn't stop it, Su Qingqing would gradually fall out of favor. Li Conghe is essentially a selfish man. 13. Your Majesty, why did you come to visit me? I slowly opened my mouth, picked up a piece of cake, put it in my mouth, and savored it slowly. Since Su Qingqing entered the mansion, I haven't had Lu Ji's snacks anymore. I really miss them. Li Conghe raised his foot and tried to take a step forward, but was stopped coldly by the attendant. He tried to force his way forward, but failed. He gritted his teeth and took a step back. I'll make amends to the Imperial Master. I tilted my head. What crime have I committed? Li Conghe hesitated and could not answer. I took something out of my sleeve. It was the military authority token that Li Yan had taken away. Li Conghe was startled. The token is with you? Then. He was not stupid and quickly understood where the military force to force the emperor to abdicate came from. He once arrogantly thought that his prestige in the army did not depend on his military command. Even if Li Yan took away his military power and military command, he could still call on his soldiers to charge and break into battle with him. I smiled and nodded. Yes, it was me who helped you command the soldiers of the mighty camp and helped you seize the throne. Li Conghe's expression changed a lot, but he finally put on a smile. Shenghe, I'm sorry for you. I didn't know you had done so much for me. In fact, I have always had you in my heart. I watched him perform quietly, knowing that he couldn't continue speaking and couldn't stop deceiving himself. I narrowed my eyes and smiled at him. I haven't forgotten Su Yi's death. Everyone who hurt her will be punished. Li Yan is the main culprit. Secondly, tell me, how should I punish your future queen? Li Conghe pursed his lips and hesitated for a long time. He did not say a word to defend Su Qingqing and even lowered his head to avoid my sight. That's what a man is. Their name is Negative Heart and Unfaithful Heart. Fortunately, I saw his true face early on and did not hesitate. Your Majesty, please go back. The result is set and will not change. Li Conghe suddenly raised his head and looked at me. Yi Sheng, you can't. The Imperial Master must protect the dynasty. This is your responsibility. I am the Emperor. You can't do that to me. I threw a piece of paper into his arms. He opened it, his face drained of all color. When did you start? I did not answer him, and the servants escorted him out. In full view of everyone, the emperor was driven out of his residence by the imperial teacher. The imperial preceptor did not bless the current emperor, seemingly dissatisfied with the emperor's illegitimate access to the throne. This rumor swept the streets of the capital. Li Conghe gradually discovered that although many ministers did not oppose him, they did not offer suggestions for improving his policies and were very perfunctory. He was furious, but still no one paid any attention to him. 14. A month later, Su Qingqing was expelled from the capital. I secretly brought her back to the capital and brought her to the Chantian Tower. Either jump down or live a life worse than death. Li Conghe's abandoned you. Those people you offended will not let you live well. Only I am willing to give you a happy ending. Su Qingqing knelt on the ground and kowtowed to me, begging for mercy. I remained indifferent until she hit her head. As it was getting dark, she finally made a decision. Why, we are both daughters of the Su family, but you can live so carefree, while I am destined to get nothing?
Bang!
She fell to the ground, blood oozing out, and people around her pointed and talked. No one collected her body. After Li Conghe knew about it, the candles in the bedroom burned all night. I openly brought the son of the late emperor's favorite concubine to the imperial master's mansion. This huge empire has more than one successor. Li Conghe did not trust the court officials and did everything himself. After 2 years, his health deteriorated, and the imperial hospital was helpless. I took the child into the palace. If Sui hadn't found the herbs that night, you would have died of poisoning. Now you have also died of poisoning, which can be regarded as taking back the help Sui gave you. Li Conghe looked haggard, pointed at me, and said in hatred, "It is you. You are so cruel. A husband and wife should be grateful to each other for 100 days, but you are killing your husband." I stroked the boy's head and said, "Don't learn from him. This is what happens to ungrateful people." I was too lazy to explain to Li Conghe that this was the last time I would see him with my own eyes. 5 days later, Li Conghe died of illness. The new emperor ascended the throne. The imperial master's mansion was empty. End of article.